I wanted to talk through a question from one of my learning design learners. I am a facilitator at the University of Technology in Sydney, and I run for facilitate selected learning design units for postgraduate adult learners that are typically in a workplace. So we're setting them up for their assessment, and we like to tap in. I'm just going to share my screen. I've got a request from one of our learners. They have an assessment. It's a 6-week course, so we have to get them moving really, really quickly. And so I've de-identified some of the details, but I really like this question because it's typical. People that are in this sort of making a transition, or they're doing a little bit of extra professional learning in this realm, um, sometimes need some guidance and support. And significantly, I'm not a subject matter expert, but this is the whole territory of learning design. So I'll just read out the question first. Hi, Mark. Just wondering if my plan for a learning activity may be suitable for the assessment. I would like to produce a standardized learning module. I'm going to highlight some of the bits that I like. Where are we? Hang on, I've lost my highlighter. There it is. Standardized learning module to orientate new pharmacists to their role at the hospital and set up ongoing evaluations to check on how they are settling in. It won't deal with the nitty gritty of how to be a hospital pharmacist. That's another learning tool, but it will provide staff with, and I haven't even read it, but I'm already going to start highlighting because I know this is where our heart is. Job expectations, how to navigate the system, provide knowledge of what mentoring and resources are available to them. Then we regularly get new pharmacists starting who have little or no hospital pharmacy experience. Okay, I like that a lot. Not about the context, but I like the fact that it's clearly identifying the context for the learners, for the potential learners, and or little or no specialist experience. So that was an area of specialist kind of medical kind of care. It would be useful to standardize an orientation package that provides an overview of what our role in the bigger scheme of the hospital is. So I guess our role in the bigger scheme with realistic expectations and goals. I really like realistic. Our department is often very challenged in an area where staff shortages impact our service delivery. I find that when we might not adequately prepare and support new staff for the rocky road ahead, it leads to dissatisfaction and disillusionment and ultimately staff turnover. Okay, so they're pretty serious business needs. And I like the fact that it's in everyday language. I get a really clear picture of what's happening, even though I'm not a pharmacist. I have been in a hospital, but not as an employee. So I guess this is what, as a learning designer, we're kind of always um, partnering with subject matter experts. So we have to kind of actively unpack, look between the lines, or what's really going on. Because ultimately, I'll finish reading. After investing all the time and energy in training, I am hoping that this can contribute towards an engaging, supporting, contribute towards engaging, supporting, and keeping our staff for longer. I'm not that creative, but hoping I can find tools that will help make this topic not as dry. I might just highlight tools and I'll highlight dry. If that's possible, what do you think? Signed, our learner. Okay. So I did ask if I was able to share my response more broadly because I think there's value in just talking through in everyday language. What are we up against? We're kind of, there's a lot going on here. There's sort of nuance, or there's upfront, very explicit needs. I might just, and I guess I kind of wanted to allocate an appropriate amount of time to just unpacking this, or to, demystifying it. Because ultimately, what our learners need to do is just come up with a half A4 page brief that is self written, that outlines the context and the learning need, the performance gap, which might be skills or knowledge or even attitude, values, that sort of thing. And then they need to tap into some of the academic literature to help them address the need, the performance gap, and the learning need. So I highlighted the word dry. I kind of thought I've been doing effectively learning design, instructional design, development of educational resources for about 30 years across all different sectors: schools, train the trainer, uh, teacher professional development, workplace training, higher ed and universities, TAFE and vocational, and community education. So I tend to not like this word dry, because dry is kind of, well, pharmacological, I can't even say it, pharmacy related content is really, really important because it's necessary. It's part of the job role, just as bricklaying insights are, or accounting, or any subject area. The fact that it's dry, I kind of think it's an unreasonable judgment up front. It may be dense, it may be detailed, it may be, monotonous, lots of other words, but um, I've sort of just got a feeling that if we sneak back up here, because we want to find out less about the pharmacist special knowledge, hospital pharmacist knowledge, they learn that somewhere else. We're looking at the human aspects of job expectation, navigating the system, maybe communication, mentoring, available resources. So these are all things that are not so much, to me, they don't sound dry at all. They sound alive with kind of life and potential. So also the tools. This is a bit of a tricky one, because when we're doing learning design, it is important for us to know what tools are available, as in, like, maybe what platforms or authoring systems or other technology, even hardware. Um, However, we don't always start with those tools. We can, but we like to start with the pedagogy or the andragogy. In everyday language, that they're the learning and teaching considerations. So, and then the process, I find, is really creative, because you're creating something new. Um, so let's just go back up to the top. Okay. So standardized learning module, yes, that's kind of good. That's really typical. That we generally assume we're going to be creating an online course of some sort that might be delivered hybrid or 100% online. There's, depending on the work situation. The fact that it's standardized, I guess this learner is best placed to decide what those standards are and where the consistency is. Might be in every course or every module is 30 minutes, or there's lots of different ways to make a standardized learning module. I like that it's some sort of orientation for new pharmacists. And then we know that their workplace is at a hospital. Um, Evaluations, I'm assuming they're patient evaluations to check on how they are settling in. Oh, no, hang on. No, they're evaluations of the pharmacists. They're new to a workplace. So there's all of a sudden we've got insight that there's more going on, that the learning can only cover so much. So there's business processes and policy procedures that are available to the staff. We may tap into some of them, but it's acknowledging, and I think it's really valuable to acknowledge that our piece of learning that we're designing sits within a context. We're not going to cover and solve everything. And so, and I don't need to know about those at this stage, and they're beyond the scope of our assignment as well. And we know it's really good to say what is not in scope. Um, So things like job expectations, okay? What I would think is we could start to develop some learning outcomes about job expectations. So it could be, I'm just going to get a bit of space here. I don't really want that to be auto. So we always, we can use other language by the end of this lesson. We'll just say lesson. It could be a module, a unit, a topic, piece of learning, workshop. Learners will be able to. So if you're already in learning and teaching territory, you would understand this kind of stem of a sentence. But we're setting up basically the next word I'm going to type is going to be a bullet point, and it's going to start with a verb. Okay. So by the end of this lesson, learners will be able to, I reckon, state's a good verb, maybe even identify. Maybe requirements, or what do they call those? I'll put KPIs. Relevant to their job role within the hospital or something like that. So it could be, I mean, you don't have to have it could be identify something else, some aspect, requirements maybe. I might soften that a bit. So the point is, I don't know exactly what this learner has in her requirements, but she does. And so I'm just guiding the process. If we're looking at job expectations, it could be that we're listing something, the skills or some other aspect of the job role. Something you could easily come up with a little piece of learning that is more than adequate for our assignment, our assessment, that's just about job expectations. So if that's the case, you would say identify something or other. You might list, you might kind of compare something. You might, if you're working in a group situation, for example, it might be really, really important. You want to foster collaboration and collegiality within the team. So you might have built in something about share insights with colleagues. So already we're starting to flesh out and expand something that's seemingly straightforward into something that is actually really customized to the context. So I could go on, but we've got plenty more that might be potentially in this. How to navigate the system. I'm assuming that means the hospital system. It could be the pharmacy system, could be the healthcare system. So I guess with that in mind, just say they're navigating the system. It could be identify components of the pharmacy within the components. Doesn't feel like it's the right word, but it's the bits and pieces maybe. Maybe it's the elements and how the pharmacy works within the hospital. So once they've done that, that's pretty low stakes. We could start to maybe describe. And again, I'm just making these up, but it's getting to the heart of what is our learning need. What are the performance gaps for our learners? And we're describing them or, outlining them in learning outcomes so that they're nice and neat and identifiable. And it's always a good idea to start with a verb. And generally, resources such as Bloom's taxonomy or similar will give you a whole range of different possibilities if you're new to developing learning outcomes. So what is it about the system, how to navigate the system? That's pretty broad. So it could be maybe the interconnections between staff members and something, or the complex something or other. So that's got lots of potential. Provide knowledge of what mentoring in itself could be. Is it mentoring from the perspective of the mentor or the mentee? What role I don't really know, but that this learner would know. And then there's all the complexity within that mentoring system. How long does it go for? What tasks, what expectations, what protocols, what paperwork? All of those could be listed in this sort of format so that they're nice and clear. And even what resources are available. Are they on a website? Are they brochures in a drawer? Are they human resources? Are they other pieces of equipment? I don't know, but again, our learner does. So she will need to just identify this already. You can probably get the impression the scope of this is enormous. We would be here all day and it's way out of our scope of for our assessment. So we want to keep it manageable. So I would recommend you just pick maybe one of these, or you could pick all of them, but you'd have a pretty light treatment of them. You wouldn't be able to get in. So I would recommend you might have, and the learner could outline, we might have 10 modules. The first three are about 15 minutes each, and they're about various aspects of the job. The next three are about navigating the healthcare system and the pharmacy system or the billing system or the ordering system, whatever systems. And what does that look like? So there's quite a degree of work involved. And the next three might be all about mentoring, and then the last one might be about resources or something. But then for the purposes of our assignment, and remember, we only have 1,000 words, and we do have to cite academic literature as well, just so that it's not overwhelming and it's manageable, maybe just one of these is selected. So we can go into a degree of detail, and I would recommend maybe three nice solid learning outcomes that have their own complexity, but we always have in mind things that are observable, or we're getting the student, and these might be behavioral learning outcomes, or they might be more kind of knowledge, like skills or knowledge. It could be the attitude of these new pharmacists is the problem. They don't feel motivated. So that might be part of the learning. And so what does that look like? We don't know. There's like unlimited correct answers in this realm. So we regularly get new pharmacists starting who have little or no hospital pharmacy experience. So it could be what a day in the life of a pharmacist, possibly. So that could be about here. It could be identify the day-to-day tasks required, or something like that. So you can probably get the impression, get the idea that I'm demystifying something. And I'm not a pharmacist, as I've stated up front. So it's just breaking it down and demystifying what does that look like in learning and teaching land. So it's a good thing that that's been identified, because we always have to have empathy for our learners. And if we know that they have little or no hospital pharmacy experience, it's almost like considering what are the things that stress them out the most in your learned understanding and experience over X number of years, because then they can be the points that we start with. And then if they have little or no specialists, just say they're cancer specialists, then there's a whole range of drugs and pharmaceuticals that would be really standard in that territory. Maybe anti-nausea medication or something like that. So all of that there could be a whole module or series of modules just on that. It would be useful to standardize an orientation package. What our role is in the bigger scheme. So that points to the system, possibly. So I think realistic. This is really, sometimes that word's used in everyday language, but it's really important that it's achievable, realistic. We don't want to overwhelm our learners because they're new to the job, they're new to learning. We want it to be enjoyable, professional, but these expectations and goals, there may be a business document that outlines those. Maybe the job ad would be a really good place to start. And then maybe sort of interview questions that are used in recruitment, they can be kind of recycled and start to expand out some of the content and activities that you might find in an online course. Now, remember, our assignment, we don't have to develop the content. We just have to describe the type of approach that we're looking at. And so this is where our learning outcomes really, that's just step one. Remember, all of this is about writing a brief. The brief isn't part of your assessment. It's just so that you have a really clear idea as to what you're hoping to achieve with your learning design process. And so our department is often challenged, staff shortages. Yeah, I guess if the person was in front of me now, I would ask, what does that look like? And how do you solve that? If you are short staffed and, because there's lots of knowledge and skills that come into that territory. Maybe it's about timetabling or how many staff you have on at certain times of the day. Not so much the business reality of that, it's about training in that. Maybe raising an awareness for new staff members, but then some staff may be across that in their job role. And then I guess this is for the learner, if you could find out or have a little brainstorm of what sort of support, what does that look like? And then there's bound to be opportunities to expand that into some of the learning and teaching. And then if you know what's leading to this dissatisfaction and disillusionment, I like them. I don't like the disillusionment and dissatisfaction, but I like that they've been identified because they offer us really valuable clues in our learning design, because everyone loves to be seen and heard and valued. So maybe these new pharmacists are not being seen and heard and valued, or maybe they're burnt out. Maybe their job role is too complex and they don't know what to do, or something. I don't know. Could be anything. But they're the keys to unlocking how we approach our learning design. So the course that we're going to create is going to be really, really targeted to, even like on the emotional and that sort of territory, the well-being, staff well-being. So these learning outcomes may be about the job expectations, could be job satisfaction, managing your schedule, that type of thing. So it's like, well, what are the indicators of burnout? It could be in the realm of, what do you call that? Like mental health, well, first aid, or staff acknowledging your own role within your own kind of context, job, went the signs of stress or that type of thing. So I'm deliberately kind of popping around all over because I find that a linear approach to this isn't always appropriate. Also, I notice I haven't really focused on much of the academic literature or the learning theories, because I find that they're really important, but they come later. They come just a fraction later. First up is really identifying what the performance gap is, and then how are we going to address that gap? This sort of developing some learning outcomes, or LOs, LOs. um, and then we can start to look at some academic literature, learning theories, learning frameworks that might resonate. Some of these might be, again, the human aspect might be really important, or maybe it's important to be really, really flexible for the delivery, or maybe a kind of sharing your ideas with your colleagues might be important. So all of those are little indicators, or big indicators, of what sort of learning you might, learning theories, I mean, you might tap into. I'm going to wrap it up now. After investing all the time and energy in training, Yes. Okay. We want it to be engaging always. We want to, I guess it's good that you've identified your business need, and then it's almost like working backwards. So there's a backwards design, um, might be really valuable as a learning framework because you know where you want to end up. And this is all within a business context. It's a workplace training. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So hopefully I've gone into a degree of detail. I probably went into more detail than usual because I know I'm recording this and I know that, well, I'm hoping that this will be just as valuable for people who are not pharmacists, any learning area. What I've just outlined, the process of scrutinizing the situation and then systematically coming up with or expanding out the needs is applicable to any learning situation, any workplace, any school, university. So I think I will leave it there. So hopefully this has set you up to write a nice, clear, half an A4 page brief, um, just so that your thoughts are gathered, and then we find that that is a really good place to kind of set you up so that you're all ready to start designing for learning. So thank you.